When Porsche started selling the Cayenne 22 years ago, there was uproar. Porsche, SUV, how dare they? Well, it's been a long time. Time is a great healer. And they do mean business at Porsche when it comes to the Cayenne, because even in 2024, yes, there is an electric hybrid version. There's also a V6 and a V8. The price difference is bonkers. You can actually get one of these for just over 100,000 euro, right up to 180,000 euro. And maybe I'm just getting used to really expensive EVs, but by that price standard, this actually feels like a bit of a bargain. It's a Porsche, not a Taycan, an SUV with a V8, if you want. This third generation facelifted version has these Taycan style headlights. Thankfully, no one's going to go vandalizing these ones, hopefully. If you don't know what I'm talking about, have a look at TikTok and just type in Porsche Taycan. There's a lot of unused space going on here. It's for air, and I get that, but it's quite big. You know, in the past you might have had a fog light there. That's into the running strip here. Bit of black going on in the front of the grille. We have grooves across the bonnet. It is a fairly, I suppose, road presence style car. The main way you'll know that this is an e-hybrid is because it says it right on the side, because you still get 4 exhausts. It's still very much a performance oriented car, even despite the fact that, yes, it's an e-hybrid. 22-inch alloys on the side. You can start with 20s on that. Black bitone going on for the mirrors, panoramic glass roof, black strips on the side, black door handles also. And in these times when SUVs come in for a lot of criticism over size, and yes, this is heavy, but styling wise, I think it's hard to argue that it's not a good looking car. Boot spoiler on the back, and actually if you just focus in on this quarter area, there is a nod to the 911 going on right here. I did just say a nod now, calm down. The electric tailgate release is here. Here's my stuff. And if you shove that out of the way, and here's one I made earlier, depending on what engine you have, you'll get up to 600 litres in the boot of the Cayenne. Charging time, it has an 11 kilowatt on board now with an increased range and a higher capacity battery. So you can charge this in 2.5 hours on 11 kilowatt. At home, it's just under 4 using a 7.4 kilowatt charger. But no denying, even on the PHEV versions, which obviously boot space is taken up with batteries, you're still getting 500 plus, which is pretty good by today's standards. This car is in competition with something like a Range Rover, maybe a Sport, and you can drop and lower the car here with a button if you're trying to get things in and out and make it a bit easier with the air suspension, the adaptive dampers. And this is, I think, the only plug-in hybrid SUV available that can tow 3.5 ton if you want. And you know, as much as this is an out-and-out performance car with a beautiful interior, quality of finish and stitching and materials, like you're not wanting for anything. There's still tons of legroom though. It's a very practical rear. They've put handles down here to help you adjust the angle of the seats and get in and out and make access easy. So all the practical stuff is actually going on. I'm kind of surprised in one sense and maybe not in the other, because it is from the same stable as Volkswagen and Audi, and the entry level does not get climate control in the rear. You do get 2 USB-C charging ports, however, and an armrest with a little love note in the back. Doesn't open up or anything like that. No access to the rear via ski hatch. And with these Porsche high shoulder seats, yes, the visibility is a little bit more restricted, but it is still a beautiful place to be sitting. Oh, and the thud when you close these doors, well, not, you know, unsurprisingly, it's solid. It's Porsche. These are characteristic of the first gen Cayenne, and I'm not sure how I feel about them. I mean, they're very intrusive into the cabin. There's a haptic pad where you manipulate your climate control, and there's a couple of shortcuts to the most obvious things you'll still want to get access to. There's a 12+ inch screen here, another one for your passenger if you want, and then you have a further kind of curved screen in front of the driver, which looks really, really good. There's an awful lot of settings, as is the case for any car these days. There's a new system coming with Porsche where even in CarPlay you can still manipulate some of the settings in the car. It's not in this, but it will be coming in future gen versions. All the usual hybrid stuff like setting up a charge, departure time in the morning, that's all there. Hybrid mode, chassis intervention, you can lower it, higher it, sports exhaust, you can turn that on and off. You have the usual drive mode settings here. Interestingly, an old-ish fashioned stalk for cruise control. Again, something you would see in Audi, however. So not a huge amount of stuff going on with the buttons on the steering wheel. Maybe that's on purpose. You do get a couple of paddles, head-up display, the famous clock on top of the dash. And it is like just the attention to detail. It's magnificent. I'd actually love to see this in the dark. I only have the car for a little while. A manual control for the steering wheel. And it's interesting, everyone is going with big chunky steering wheels. Porsche are kind of going with a small one. So it's not difficult to get your hands around this one. The modes are off-road, sport, sport plus, hybrid, and then full EV mode, which Porsche say is good for up to maybe 70 kilometers on just EV. And messing with that toggle switch brings up the shortcut here. You can also hold on to some battery if you're going into a zero emission zone, if that ever comes into places like Dublin. So yeah, you can go mad with the extras, you can go mad with the different colors. This is quite, you know, standard black, classic look really. The steering wheel, I'd love to see maybe a bit more going on with the plastic here, having seen carbon fiber and wood in other Porsches. It's beautiful, but all the extra stuff does add up. The wireless charging pad, of which there's one, will cool your phone as it charges, because a lot of phones these days get very, very hot from wireless charging. That's in to counteract it. I wasn't sure if I liked that little toggle down switch on first driving to select the gear. I kind of like it now. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the Cayenne, which has, not surprisingly, a high up, decent seating position. There's a bit of driver monitoring going on. It will beep at you if you go over the speed limit. All these settings can be turned off, but I do find the beep actually isn't so intrusive that it drives you mad. I'm in auto hybrid now. You're not really going to change that if you want to be in forced pure electric mode, or you want to crank it up to sport, which does sound like that. That V6 sounds absolutely beautiful, and that's what I'm saying. It's so rare to even just to hear that sound these days is quite rare, you know, and it's exciting. Look at the smile on my face. I'm gonna miss this kind of stuff when cars progress into the future. In fact, I recently bought what you could call a classic. I'm going to do a video on it on the channel. I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet. If you turn it into hybrid mode from that, even if you don't have any charge in the battery, there's always a little bit of charge reserved to keep it into hybrid mode. And Porsche say they can get 30% more energy back into the battery from regen braking in this updated version of the Cayenne. So that is actually impressive. It kind of almost makes it sound like a green efficient car. If you don't charge this car, even driving it normally, you will see 11 litres per 100 kilometers. So it is in your interest to charge it, or else get a non-hybrid version of the car. It is quite firm, I have to say that. These are obviously the bigger 22-inch alloys. It's not like there's thin rubber bands on them, there's good profile, but it's still a very firm car. With all the talk of Taycan depreciation, are you better set up to get something like this? That is a question. I don't know if the Taycan depreciation issue is as much of an issue here as it is in the UK, because there's just so many for sale there. It's still quite a niche car in Ireland. But maybe, yeah, a bit of electric, but also something that sounds like that is the kind of the winning combo. Now, if you go for the full-on, full-fat version of this car, you are talking 700 plus brake horsepower. You might want to consider the ceramic brakes if you're going to go down that route. Standard ones are okay, but you're trying to bring something very heavy to a quick stop if you need it to. Overtaking is brisk, as you can imagine. Just gets on with the job. There's a bit of wind noise, a bit of tire noise. Again, it's all associated really with the bigger tires and just the drag of a car of this design. It will always pull a bit of air with it. That's just to be expected. When you do accelerate, even when it's in hybrid mode, you'll feel more power coming from the engine as you progress up through the revs. There's a BMW i8. Everyone's out today in the fancy cars. Like there's probably a bit of sports sound going on. I think when you crank up the Sport Plus exhaust though, and you turn that on, Sport Plus and the exhaust. It's addictive, and I will challenge you not to drive your car in that mode more than hybrid mode, should you get one. It's still sharp though to handle. I mean, for a heavy bus, higher up seating position, SUV is famous for body roll. It's actually not too bad through the corners. It's sharp enough. I'm sure there's electronic technology balancing it all out. I just love the sound of it. It's no 911, I understand, but there's no doubt Porsche will sell more of these per year than 911s in Ireland, and that's kind of a depressing thought when it comes to 911. God, that's sweet. Why can't all cars sound like this? Would be the dream. Like, I've driven some really expensive electric stuff recently, and it's kind of hard for me to see past, like, while this style of car mightn't be the obvious thing that you want, but as an overall package, like, this car is okay. If you don't spec anything onto it, which is going to be hard, it's barely 16 grand dearer than a Kia EV9. Like, that kind of tells you a lot, you know? It really does. Unfortunately, when I collected the car this morning, there was no charge in the battery. There's a claimed efficiency figure of 1.5 litres per 100 kilometres, which is outstanding if you can do that. It would have been nice to test the range of the car as well. As I said, when I picked it up this morning, there wasn't sufficient charge in the PHEV part of the battery. But I'd say you'd certainly sort of see 50 to 60 kilometres out of it. Generally, these things, you know, you've got to skim a bit off the top of what the manufacturers say. I haven't really covered the safety stuff because you're just focused on enjoying it, but yes, it has blind spot, frontal collision. It'll tell you if you're getting too close to the car in front, rear traffic cross monitoring, all the safety aids you want and expect. And again, to be honest with you, some things that I've seen not spec'd on Audis that cost more than this. An Audi being we can call it a cousin of Porsche. One more. Ramp. So that's the other thing. You can only go like 15 seconds before you're either breaking the speed limit or you've got to hit the brakes in this country. It's so addictive. Keep doing that and there's no point having a hybrid. Anyway, my final thoughts right now on the Porsche Cayenne. This is one of those cars that you'd happily drive for the next 10 years. It looks great. It is economical if you want to run it that way. The fact that Porsche are giving us V8s in 2024 is to be commended. How long that will continue for, I don't know, but it is a very striking car, and for all the SUV hate in the world, it would kind of perhaps struggle. I know some people say, God, it's awful looking. Many others will say, God, it's beautiful. The curves, the angles, they've got it really right with this facelift version of the car. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, it's not even crazy money by today's standards. You know, think of the other SUVs I've had on the channel recently, the XM from BMW, €200,000 car. And yes, if you expect the V8 version, of which the XM is, on this, you're not going to see much change out of that either. But the point is, you can buy a more affordable version of this car. You can't with something like the XM. You're either all in or you're not. So I like it. It's very comfortable. You've got to plug it in, otherwise it's going to be thirsty, and then you're carrying around that extra almost 400 kilograms of batteries. You might as well just get the V6 and the S version, which starts from about €115,000. But look, if you can afford these cars, money's not really an object, is it? Anyway, let me know. Is it on your lotto list, or are you actually considering one? Maybe you've bought a second-hand Cayenne over the years and it was really good to you. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.